You're standing under the harsh buzzing lights of the arrivals hall. Your flight just touched down. Your head feels heavy, your phone is hanging on at 3%, and the line ahead of you snakes toward a row of immigration booths where officers sit, still, focused, unreadable. Then it happens. That look. An officer lifts his eyes, scans the crowd, and motions you forward. No smile, no hint of what he's thinking. Just a silent invitation that could decide whether you walk straight into a new country or get pulled aside for questions you never expected. Every traveler knows this moment, but almost no one understands what's really happening. Because the truth is, airport officers aren't improvising. They're not guessing, and they're definitely not asking questions at random. Behind that glass booth is a system, one designed to read you before you say a single word. Your posture, your bag, your breathing, the way you clutch your passport. They're studying it all, and in the next minutes, you're going to see exactly how it works. You'll learn the 10 airport questions almost every passenger gets tested on. And more importantly, how to answer them smoothly, confidently, without raising a single red flag. Because whether you're landing in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, or anywhere in between, the logic behind these questions is the same. Say too much, and you look suspicious. Say too little, and they start digging. But once you understand the insider logic behind each one, you'll walk through that airport like someone who already knows the script. So, let's begin with the very first question, the one that sets the tone for everything that follows. Question 1. May I see your passport? It sounds routine, almost automatic, but inside every airport on Earth, this simple line, "May I see your passport?" is more than a formality. It's the opening test. The officer isn't just asking for a document, they're watching you, your hands, your breathing, the way your eyes react when you step forward. Picture this. You reach the counter, the fluorescent light hitting your face at the worst angle possible. The officer extends a hand. You start digging through your backpack, papers shifting, zipper stuck, and suddenly you hear yourself say, yeah, just 1 second. That tiny crack in your voice? That half-second of panic? It says more than your passport ever could. Because airport officers, especially immigration officers, are trained to read micro-hesitations. Those tiny signals your body sends when you're unsure, stressed, or hiding something. They're not judging your vacation plans. They're judging your composure. Here's the insider truth. Passengers who fumble at this very first step often get flagged for extra questions. Not because they're guilty, but because they look unprepared, unpredictable, or overwhelmed. So here's the move seasoned travelers make. Keep your passport within easy reach, not buried at the bottom of your carry-on. Not somewhere you'll have to unpack 3 things to get to. When the officer asks, you hand it over calmly. Steady, simple. Say, here it is. Or just, of course. No jokes, no explanations, no apology tour. Because in airports, confidence is your first clearance, and every second you look like you belong, those glass doors get a little closer to sliding open for you. Now, once you pass that first test, they move on to the question that quietly reveals your entire travel story, even when you don't realize it. Question 2. How long will you stay? It sounds harmless, almost friendly, but don't let the simplicity fool you. This is one of the most revealing questions in the entire airport playbook. You step forward. The officer glances at your passport, then asks, in the same flat, unreadable tone, "How long will you stay?" Most travelers panic right here. Not outwardly, but inside, their brains start scrambling. Was it 10 days or 12? Do I mention the wedding? Should I explain my itinerary? Do they need the exact dates? And suddenly, Instead of a clean answer, you hear yourself rambling, "Well, I'm here for maybe 2 weeks, but it could be a bit longer unless… if my friend invites me to, well, you know?" And just like that, the officer's eyes lift. Not aggressively, not accusing, just sharper. Because rambling equals uncertainty, and uncertainty is a red flag. Here's the insider truth. Every country tracks visitors who overstay. The databases behind that small glass booth know trends, patterns, and risks. So when you hesitate, even for a moment, you fit the profile of someone who might not be planning to leave. But experienced travelers? They answer with precision, short, steady, unshakable. "I'll be here for 10 days. 1 week. 2 months for school. Done." No extra stories, no nervous laughter, no justifications they never asked for. Because officers aren't trying to trap you. They're checking whether your plans sound controlled or chaotic. A calm, confident answer tells them one thing: this traveler knows exactly what they're doing. And once they hear that, they move on to the question that quietly tests whether your story matches the data they already have on you. Question 3. What's the purpose of your visit? This is the question that can flip the entire conversation, from smooth and casual to tense and investigative in a matter of seconds. You hear the officer say it in that steady, neutral tone. What's the purpose of your visit? It sounds simple, but behind that single sentence is a whole hidden system. One that already knows more about your trip than you think. Because here's the insider truth. By the time you reach the counter, your purpose of travel is already predicted by your flight history, visa type, reservation data, and even the patterns in your passenger profile. They're not asking because they don't know. They're asking to see if you know and if your words match the digital trail behind you. Most travelers take this question the wrong way. They start talking too much. They get emotional. They over-explain. Picture this. You say, "I'm visiting friends." The officer's eyebrows lift. "Where do your friends live? How did you meet them?" Suddenly, you're in a mini interrogation. All because your answer sounded vague. Here's what seasoned travelers do instead. They stick to the 3 safe categories: tourism, business, education. The only 3 words immigration instantly recognizes and accepts. I'm here for vacation. I'm attending a business meeting. I'm studying for 1 month. Clean, contained, complete. No life story. No details from 2012. No unnecessary context. Immigration lines aren't TED Talks. Because here's the twist. It's not what you say. It's how confidently you say it. If your answer is precise, controlled, and perfectly aligned with your traveler profile, they move on. If not, you might be heading toward that quiet little side door labeled secondary inspection. But answer it right, and you'll glide straight into the next phase, where officers probe something deeper than your itinerary. They probe your stability. Question 4. What do you do for work? This is where the officer leans back just slightly. Not relaxed, but observant, as if your next sentence is going to reveal far more than your job title. You hear the question, "What do you do for work?" And instantly, you feel the shift. This isn't small talk. This isn't curiosity. This is one of the quietest, most calculated filters in the entire airport system. Because your job tells a story. One the officer can read in seconds. A job means stability. Stability means roots. Roots mean you have a reason to return home. And a reason to return home means you're not planning to overstay. If you're a student, the logic is simple. You're learning, not running away. If you're employed, it signals structure and responsibility. But if you hesitate, if you mumble, if your story sounds improvised, the officer's mind goes straight to the next question. How are you funding this trip? Here's the insider truth most travelers never hear. Immigration officers don't care whether you're a CEO or a cashier. They care about whether your life makes sense on paper. So here's how seasoned travelers answer: clearly, calmly, and without a single unnecessary detail. I'm a teacher. I work in marketing. I'm a software engineer. I'm a student. That's it. No self-deprecating jokes. No 5-minute backstory. No awkward explanations like, "Well, I just left my job, but I'm hoping to start something new soon." That's the verbal equivalent of opening a door they never asked you to open. And if you're between jobs, traveling long-term, or retired, there's a better way to say it, one that signals confidence, not chaos. I recently finished a job in accounting and I'm taking a short vacation before starting my next role. I'm retired and traveling for a few weeks. Short, structured, in control. Because at this stage of the interview, the officer is measuring something simple. Are you grounded or drifting? And the moment they feel you're grounded, they move on to the next question. One that tests whether your story lines up with someone else's. Question 5. Are you traveling alone? The officer tilts their head just a little. Not suspicious, just calculating. And then they ask the question that sounds harmless, but isn't harmless at all. Are you traveling alone? Most passengers think this is casual, maybe even polite. But from an airport insider's perspective, this question is one of the most strategic ones they ask. Because here's the truth almost no traveler realizes. By the time you're standing at that counter, the officer already knows the answer. Your airline shared your data the moment you checked in. Your seat assignment, your booking record, even who scanned their boarding pass right before or after you. It's all visible on their screen. They're not checking whether you're alone. They're checking whether your story matches the system. So imagine what happens if you panic. You start talking too fast. You over-explain. You add details they never asked for. "Well, I'm traveling with a friend, but she's kind of not exactly here yet. She took another flight. We met online. We're supposed to." And in an instant, the officer shifts. Not angry, not aggressive, just sharper. Because nothing raises red flags faster than a traveler who can't give a straight, clean answer. Here's how seasoned travelers respond. If you're alone, you say it simply and confidently. "Yes, I'm traveling alone." And then you stop talking. No filler. No commentary. Silence is your ally. If you're with someone, keep it equally simple. "I'm traveling with my sister." "I'm here with a friend." No names, no origin stories, no unnecessary explanations about how long you've known them or where they're waiting. Here's the insider logic. The more you explain, the less believable you sound. Nervous travelers ramble. Confident travelers answer, pause, and wait. Because this question isn't about who you're with. It's about how sure you are of your own story. Project confidence, and the officer moves on. Project uncertainty, and the interview gets longer. And speaking of longer, the next question digs into something deeper than companionship. It digs into the part of your life that could make an officer stop everything. Your family connections in the country. Question 6. Do you have any family here? This is the moment when the officer's posture changes, not in a threatening way, but in a way that tells you this next answer matters more than you think. You hear the question, calm but calculated. Do you have any family here? To most travelers, it sounds almost friendly, like the officer is making conversation. But from an insider airport perspective, this question is one of the most strategic filters in the entire interview. Here's why. Family equals connection. Connection equals potential long-term stay. And a long-term stay, especially for the wrong traveler, equals a higher risk of overstaying a visa. So, the officer isn't really asking about your cousin or your aunt. They're measuring your ties to the country, and how those ties affect the likelihood that you'll eventually go home. If the answer is no, just say it cleanly. No, I don't. Don't over-explain. Don't panic rant. No, I don't know anyone here. I swear. Or, no, no one at all. No family, no friends, nobody. Because over-explaining sounds like fear, and fear sounds like you're hiding something. But if your answer is yes, that's where many travelers panic, because they assume mentioning family is automatically suspicious. It isn't. You just have to handle it correctly. Yes, my cousin lives here. My sister works in the city. Short, honest, surface level. Because the truth is, the officer isn't evaluating your family. They're evaluating your reaction to the question. Do your eyes shift? Does your tone change? Does your body stiffen like you're suddenly guarding a secret? That's what triggers follow-up questions. Not the family member, but your behavior. From behind that counter, officers aren't looking for perfect answers. They're looking for steady answers. Whether the truth is yes or no, deliver it calmly, confidently, and without a single ounce of defensive energy. Because in immigration interviews, the secret isn't just what you say. It's how steady you are while saying it. And once you clear this checkpoint, the next question shifts from family ties to your personal history, and whether it matches what's already in their system. Question 7. Have you been here before? This is the question that catches travelers off guard. Not because it's complicated, but because it feels like a trap. The officer glances at your passport, then looks up with a neutral, almost friendly expression and asks, "Have you been here before?" Sounds innocent, right? But behind that simple question is a silent database check, one that already knows the answer before you open your mouth. Because here's the airport insider truth. Your travel history is logged. Every entry, every exit, every visa, every stamp. They can see it all with one glance at their screen. So why ask? Because they're not checking your past. They're checking your honesty and consistency right now. This is a memory test disguised as conversation. If it's your first time, keep it direct. No, this is my first time here. Don't add, I've always wanted to come. Or, I was supposed to come last year, but… No fluff, no storytelling. If you have visited before, your answer must land with clarity. Yes, I visited last summer. I was here 2 years ago for business. Notice something? Time frame. Clean. Simple. Controlled. What you don't want to do is drift into long, nostalgic vacation stories or emotional details about who you met last time. This isn't the place. Because here's the twist most travelers never realize. The officer isn't just listening to the words. They're listening to the hesitation between the words. If you pause too long, if your voice wavers as you try to remember the date, if you look away like you're unsure, that tiny slip can trigger a deeper review, and once that mechanism activates, the conversation shifts. More questions, more verification, more waiting. This question isn't really about your travel history. It's about your composure under subtle pressure, the kind that most travelers don't even notice. Remember this, in immigration, calm is currency, and if you can hold it here, you'll breeze past a checkpoint that quietly slows down thousands of nervous travelers every single day. Now, the next question is different. It's less about your past and more about what you're carrying in the present. A question that can flip your trip instantly if you answer it wrong. Question 8. Do you have anything to declare? This is the one question that seems boring, until it isn't. The officer looks at you with the same calm expression as before and asks, "Do you have anything to declare?" It sounds like bureaucracy. It sounds routine. But this, right here, is where more travelers get into trouble than any other part of the airport. Because this question isn't about what you brought. It's about whether you understand the rules. And here's the insider truth. Customs officers are not looking for smugglers. They're looking for hesitation. One pause, one shaky, one guilty glance at your bag, and suddenly you're being directed to the inspection lane for a quick look, which is never actually quick. Most travelers don't realize how strict some countries are. You might think, it's just snacks. It's just vitamins. It's just the medicine I always carry. But in another country, that could fall under restricted items, controlled imports, or undeclared goods. Even carrying a few thousand in cash can become a problem if you don't declare it properly. And this is where confident honesty becomes your best friend. If you truly have nothing to declare, say it clearly. No, I don't. Not nervously, not apologetically, not with a long explanation about what isn't in your bag. Just clean and certain. If you do have something to declare, be upfront. Yes, I have some items to declare. Then stop talking and follow their lead. Officers respect honesty. They reward it with speed. Because here's the twist. An honest declaration can clear you faster than a nervous no ever will. What they're trained to detect isn't illegal items. It's behavior, body language, tone, confidence versus guilt. If you hesitate here, even for a second, the officer's suspicion spikes. And if they find something undeclared, even if it was a genuine mistake, your trip suddenly becomes fines, confiscation, and a lot of unnecessary stress. So remember this one rule. The golden rule of airport survival. Confidence cannot hide dishonesty, but honesty, delivered calmly, clears you like nothing else. Once you pass this checkpoint, you're almost through. Almost. But there's one more question officers use to measure whether your story is solid or starting to wobble. Question 9. Where will you be staying? By now, the officer has heard your story. Where you're from, why you're here, how long you'll stay, and everything you've said so far has painted a picture of who you are as a traveler. But this is where they check if the picture actually makes sense. You hear it, delivered in that same calm, unreadable voice. Where will you be staying? Most travelers freeze. Not because they're hiding anything, but because they didn't memorize the name of the hotel, or they suddenly can't remember the neighborhood, or they panic and think they need to recite an entire address. That's when the officer notices the shift, the uncertainty, the searching eyes, the nervous and for an immigration officer, an unsure traveler is a traveler worth double-checking. Here's the insider truth. They're not testing your memory. They're testing your control. They don't expect you to know the postcode. They don't expect you to list the street number. They don't even expect you to recall the booking reference. They just want to know that you know where you're going. So here's how seasoned travelers answer. Short, clear, confident. I'm staying at the Pacific Hotel in Manhattan, at an Airbnb in downtown Toronto, with my cousin in Melbourne. That's it. No rambling, no guessing, no panicked scrolling through emails while the officer watches. And here's a detail most travelers never hear. In many countries, your accommodation is already linked to your arrival card, visa, or airline data. The officer is simply checking if your answer matches the information the system already shows. When you answer smoothly, with that calm certainty of someone who prepared, the officer sees one thing. Control. And control equals credibility. Because nothing worries an immigration officer more than a traveler who seems unsure of their own destination. So, memorize the basics. Know the name, the city, the type of place. That's all you need. Answer this one right. And you're now just one single question away from clearing the invisible line between visitor and approved entry. Question 10. Can I see your return ticket or onward travel? This is it, the final checkpoint. The moment the officer decides whether your entire story makes sense, or whether something doesn't quite add up. You hear the question, "Can I see your return ticket or onward travel?" This isn't just about paperwork. This is about intention. Your intention to leave. Every country in the world, from the US to the UK to Australia to Singapore, uses this question to separate solid travelers from potential overstays. And here's the insider truth. If you hesitate here, if you start digging through 5 zippers, scrolling endlessly through your email, fumbling with your phone at 2% battery, you instantly look unprepared. And unprepared travelers get second looks. Seasoned travelers, though? They never wait to be caught off guard. They prepare for this moment. When the officer asks, they respond with calm certainty. "Yes, here it is. I'm flying back on the 22nd." Or, "I have an onward flight to Singapore." They know exactly where the ticket is. They open it in seconds. No panic, no messy digging, no awkward explanations about changing plans later. Because here's the twist. The officer doesn't care if your ticket is flexible, refundable, or if you're planning to switch flights later. They just need to see structure, a plan, evidence that you are not here to disappear into the city. And here's the insider detail most travelers never know. Even a digital ticket, shown confidently, is often enough to close the entire interview on a positive note. But if you can't find it, if your phone dies, if you suddenly look like you have no idea what your next step is, that's when the interview shifts direction. And not in your favor. So keep your ticket where you can reach it immediately. A dedicated folder on your phone. A printed copy in your passport sleeve. A screenshot saved offline. Because your return ticket isn't just a document. At this moment, it's your final proof of credibility. Show it fast. Show it calmly. Show it without a hint of uncertainty. And just like that, you pass the last test between suspicion and smooth entry. You've made it through all 10 questions, but before you walk through those sliding glass doors, there's one final truth every traveler needs to hear. The truth immigration never tells you, but every airport insider knows. Traveler checklist. The calm passenger system. Before you grab your bags and step into the city, there's one more thing you need. The checklist seasoned travelers use without even thinking. A simple system that keeps you calm, collected, and unshakably confident at every airport counter worldwide. Think of this as your calm passenger system. The mental toolkit that turns you from a nervous flyer into someone who breezes through immigration like they've done it 100 times. Here it is. 1. Keep your passport close, not buried, not lost in a side pocket, not hidden under snacks and souvenirs. Have it accessible the moment you step off the plane. 2. Know your story before they ask. Your purpose, your length of stay, your destination. Say it clean, clear, and without hesitation. 3. Don't overshare. Answer the question, only the question, and stop talking. Silence shows confidence. Rambling shows uncertainty. 4. Be precise, not detailed. You'll stay 1 week. You're here for tourism. You're visiting your cousin. Short answers sound certain. Long answers sound rehearsed. 5. Keep travel documents in a quick access folder. Return ticket, hotel info, onward travel. If they ask, you open it in seconds. No fumbling, no panic. 6. Stay aware of your body language. Stand steady. Breathe normally. Avoid nervous movements. Your body tells your story before your mouth does. 7. Walk up to the counter like you belong there. Because you do. And that energy, that calm, grounded energy, is the difference between a smooth entry and extra questions. This checklist isn't about tricking the system. It's about understanding it. When you look prepared, you are prepared. And immigration officers recognize that instantly. Now that you know the playbook, there's only one thing left between you and becoming a truly seasoned traveler. The truth about the one airport experience that every passenger dreads, but almost nobody understands. The moment when an officer looks up, pauses, and says the phrase no traveler wants to hear, "Please come with me." But what actually happens next? What really goes on behind that frosted glass door, in the world of secondary screening? Is it a punishment? A random check? A hidden investigation? Or something completely different? You might think you know, but trust me, the reality will surprise you. And if this helped you stay ready for 2026, hit subscribe and tap the bell. Because the next wave of airport changes is already in motion. Safe travels, traveler. And remember, confidence is your clearance.